Hey everybody, it's Brian again. We're going to go through box number one, part of this big giant unboxing of my 1,000+ video game purchase. This is by far, in my almost 30 years of video game collecting, the largest single purchase that I've made at any one given time. And it does have a huge amount of video games in it, both boxed and unboxed. So we're going to get to it. I just want to tell you that most of the games in this collection are in almost pristine condition in one way or another. There are some that have some flaws, but primarily this is one of the best quality condition purchases I've seen as well. So I hope you enjoy it. We're going to start out with this box here. This box that I just pulled out randomly is not a full box. It's about halfway full with boxed games. So we're just going to pull out what's in there. There's no particular order, and I'll be as surprised as you as to what's in there because I just put them in these storage boxes, but I didn't really pay attention to what was where. So this is going to be sort of a trip down memory lane for me too. Alright, well, we're going to start here. We've got, in this particular box, we've got, looks like mostly a collection of third-party games. We've got some CBS Fox in there, 20th Century Fox. We've got CBS. We've got some Spectravision games. We've got some games by Apollo. And we've got some Data Age I see here. A couple 2600, a couple Sears games. But one of the first things that caught my eye was right here. We've got a boxed set of keyboard controllers. And it's a pretty minty box, as you can see here. Boxed set of keyboard controllers. Looks like this was sold at Video Concepts for $19.90 back whenever this was sold. We'll just take a look at this and see what's in there. I have not opened any of these, so we'll kind of randomly take a look. And it looks like we've got, as promised, we've got a pair of video game controllers. Atari 2600 keyboard controllers for some of the early educational games that Atari put out for the 2600. So that's a nice bonus there. In addition to the games, got a set of pretty nice controllers. Alright, and here we have Space Chase by Apollo. Pretty cool blue box there. Nice color to this box, and again, this box is in pretty mint shape. Also, I'm not going to open every one of these boxes because there are so many of them, but each one of these boxes is complete with instructions and anything else, in a lot of cases, a lot of catalogs and things that came with each of the games. So there's Space Chase by Apollo. Got a couple 20th Century Fox games now in some pretty good condition. We've got MASH right here. Not that uncommon, but I will show you just here that the tab on the side of the game is still intact. A lot of times you see this tab missing or torn in some way or another. This tab is intact, and it even has the sticker on it for the t-shirt that came free with purchase. I don't have the shirt, but there's the sticker for it right here on the MASH box. And inside we've got a pretty mint looking manual. MASH right there. And of course the mint game MASH. So that's a nice addition to this particular box that we have here. And along with that, we've got Revenge of the Beefsteak Tomatoes, one of the more uncommon Atari 2600 20th Century Fox games, and a very nice game it is too. This one looks to be in pretty good shape. It doesn't seem to have any flaws on it, and it also has the complete tab right there that you can see. So, Revenge of the Beefsteak Tomatoes. Now moving on, we've got some Data Age games here. Now Data Age, this throws up some nostalgia for me because when I was a kid, we had a Service Merchandise not too far from my house. And I used to ride my bike there because it was a catalog showroom, and they had all the video games on display in the back of the showroom. They had the 5200, they had the VIC-20, the Commodore 64, 2600, and they were all playable. And in addition, they had an area in the back where they just had games in bins in the center of the store, and you could pull out and look at the various games for the various systems. And when Data Age came out with their games, they had all the Data Age games on display, the initial titles that Data Age came out with. And I remember going there and I bought Snake, which, as some of you may know, is not a very good game. It's ranked up there as one of the worst Atari 2600 games. But when I was a kid, I actually did enjoy it. I Got a little bored with it, but I did enjoy it. And Airlock was the other one that I bought, and that is one that's in this collection right here, as a matter of fact. It brings back some fond memories of riding my bike to Service Merchandise and getting these games. I believe I paid $9.95 for each one of those, which at the time was pretty cheap, I have to say. And Airlock, I think, was the first one that I bought. And here is the boxed copy of Airlock that I have right here in pretty darn mint condition right here. It's got a price tag from someplace called Shelby's that I don't know for $7.88. The game is in pretty good shape, and this brings back some memories for me. I remember playing Airlock quite a bit when I was a kid and trying to make it through the submarine. The theme of this game is to make it out of a submarine before it floods. It wasn't a very complicated game. It only had, even on the hard levels, it only had 10 floors to get out of, but there is a little bit of the nervousness, the adrenaline factor trying to get out of there, especially when you're 10 or 11 years old playing the game. And the other game that I bought, I mentioned at Service Merchandise, is Snake, right there. And there we have a boxed copy of Snake. Pretty good boxed copy, I have to say. It's pretty good quality. It looks really good. One thing I'm very impressed with all of these games so far is they do look like they've been sitting on a shelf. Some of them are dusty, but they are certainly in mint condition. So that's Snake. And in addition, we've got 3 more boxed Data Age. We've got Encounter at L5, which is one of the Data Age games that used paddles. Now, this is a game that I did not get until my adult years. I did not buy Encounter at L5. Then we have Bugs, another paddle game. Pretty cool cover. One of the things I liked about Data Age was their silver scheme, their silver box scheme. And I like uniformity to the labels and things, and you could see they were all uniform, except for a couple of them. Journey Escape, which obviously is one of their most popular titles and well-known titles, and Frankenstein's Monster. Slightly different packaging for those. And here is Warp Lock. Warp Lock, if you can see, is a little dusty. It's got some dust going on there, but a little damp rag will get that off of there, and it looks pretty good. So we got 5 Data Age games in there, 2 20th Century Fox, and we've also got 2 copies of Crossforce by Spectravision. 2 pretty darn good copies of Crossforce by Spectravision, I have to say. One of them here is from a store called Bradley's. If you look closely, you can see the original price there was $24.80 on there, and the markdown price was $9.99. This was another game that I did not have when I was a kid, but I love the packaging of Spectravision. This, I remember bringing back memories of a game called Planet Patrol. Planet Patrol had the gimmick of turning from day to night while you were playing the game, which is meaningless today. But back then, back in the early 80s, that was pretty impressive. You had a game that actually changed from day to night while you were playing it and then back to day again. So there weren't that many games that did that. You had Enduro. Enduro I can recall from Activision that did that. But you also had Planet Patrol. So I bought Planet Patrol, but I never bought this one. That's Crossforce. And 2 copies. 2 very good copies of Crossforce. Moving on, we've got one of the more famous games for the 2600 in terms of quality. This was one of those titles from CBS Electronics. CBS Electronics put out a lot of games that I particularly liked, including Solar Fox and Wizard of War. They did a pretty good adaptation of Wizard of War for the 2600, but here's one of the less common ones for the 2600, Mountain King. This is a very good game and has a big Easter egg in it, an entire world. If you hit, as you're traveling through the mountain, if you land just right and get up in a high section of mountain, either through an error in the code or various reasons, whatever it might be, there is an entire world that randomly changes that you can explore. It doesn't seem to end. It's a very huge Easter egg in this game, Mountain King. And it may be unintentional, maybe intentional, we don't really know for sure, but nevertheless, Mountain King, one of those games that people really enjoy for the 2600, very well done, and a very nice boxed copy there. You're going to hear me saying that quite often, a very nice boxed copy, because I do have a lot of very nice boxed copies in this collection. So as I'm looking at these, I'm seeing them for the first time too, really. So I'm somewhat impressed, actually, with some of the box copies that I have. So finishing off this box, we've got VidTech, Space Jockey. Now here's a game. This is one of those games that when I was a kid, I bought. I was limited as a kid to things that were generally under $10. I believe I paid $6.99 for Space Jockey when I got it. Very simple game. This is one of the launch titles for VidTech, and frankly, it's not all that exciting. It's just 4 or 5 rows of aliens that you just keep shooting at, and frankly, I discovered a pattern as a kid where you could sit on the ground and just press the fire button at certain intervals, and you would constantly hit a target at the end and never get hit yourself. So, not a very exciting game, but one that I do remember purchasing when I was a kid. Got a couple 2600 Atari brand titles in here. We've got Real Sports Volleyball, part of the Real Sports series right there. And this is the original 1982 release of Real Sports Volleyball. There are some 87 and 88 releases, but this is the 1982 release, Real Sports Volleyball. And we've got Midnight Magic. Very good pinball game on the 2600 Midnight Magic right there. Another excellent game. And finally, to close it out, we've got a couple Sears gatefold boxes. So as you know, Sears released the Atari 2600 as the Sears Telegames system, and they also released a lot of early Atari 2600 titles under their own Sears brand and unique name. So as an offshoot, you will often see these games, Sears games here, collectible in Atari 2600 sections as well. So me, having grown up in the Chicagoland area, of course, Sears was headquartered here, so there were a lot of times when I would go to Sears and see all the Sears Telegames on display and get confused as a kid. What is this game? What is that game? And especially when I saw the Sears exclusives, Stellar Track and Submarine Commander and Steeplechase, because those are the only 3 games that are unique to Sears. The rest of them are all Atari titles that they just put different names on in some cases. And so I could figure out, well, this game is this game. Outer Space, for example, is Starship, and things like Tank Plus is Combat, for example. But I couldn't figure out if Steeplechase, Stellar Track, and Submarine Commander were unique or not. But I think I did actually figure that out eventually, that they were. So, in any case, this brings back some memories, and I've got a couple gatefold ones here. These are the original 1977 issue. When the 2600 first came out, the first several games for the system came out in gatefold boxes. That is, boxes that opened up like a book. They were pretty high quality boxes. And the Sears games also followed suit. So the original Sears releases came in gatefold boxes as well. So here's Outer Space that I mentioned. This is Starship, known as Starship, for the 2600. And as you can see, it is the gatefold box. It's got the manual and the cover. The manual slots in nicely. These are very high quality boxes. They're shiny on the outside. They're very much heavier, thicker. This portion here in particular is very thick compared to the standard 2600 box. And then, of course, I have the pack-in Tank Plus. Now, this Tank Plus is also gatefold, and you can see that it's got a glossy front finish. This is very shiny and glossy. And you've got Tank Plus and the manual right there. Sears gatefold for you. Well, that closes out the very first box that we have. Oh, we've got another 20 or so to go, so you stay tuned here. Random Nostalgia and the massive, giant unboxing of Atari 2600 stuff. We'll talk to you later.